You know, it's funny when I went on the Colbert Show after I got fired from the White House. I'm pretty sure they were booing me. I'm pretty sure they were like, they were booing me. But when I got on the stage, I said, it sounds like mooch to me. Just calmed them down a little bit. All right. Well, anyway, what I want to do, if it's cool, is I want to talk for about 10 minutes. Talk about the state of the economy, if that's okay, a little bit. Talk a little bit about the election, and then take questions. Is that cool? We'll make this interactive, and you can ask me anything you want. We can talk about sports, religion, politics, how to get fired from the White House and survive the White House, how to sell 30% of your business to Sam Bankman-Fried, survive that. I was 6'8". I was 6'8" when I met Donald Trump, and that was okay. It was okay because I was 6'2" when I met Sam Bankman-Fried, but look at me now. It's been rough. It's been rough. But the truth be told, there's young people in the room. You got to keep going, right? What did Churchill say? When you're walking through hell, keep walking. When people are writing your financial obituary or other obituaries, you ignore that and you do what you think is right. And I think that's the big resonating message from the ups and downs of my career. But let's talk about the economy for a second, and then let's talk a little bit about the election. I'm an opinionated guy. So I'm guaranteed to piss off half of this room, if possibly more, because I'm in Miami. Who the hell knows? But the first thing I'm going to say is the economy is ridiculously strong. Is everybody looking at the data? This is an economic club. The U.S. economy is confounding the experts because they thought for sure we would be tipping into a recession by now, even a shallow recession, given the economic expansion post-COVID. But I think three things have happened. And I think is a big lesson in this, particularly from my life. When I got to the White House and they gave me the first presidential daily brief, I was shocked at what goes on around the world. I remember looking at the CIA intelligence officer was giving me the briefing, and I was like, well, this wasn't reported in the news, and that's not reported in the news. And I was like, oh my God. And then the other thing he said to me, well, a lot of the stuff in this brief is probabilities. We don't really know. There's a 60% chance of this, there's a 20% chance of that. We don't really know. And so it's not like Hollywood. The people don't really know. And that's true about the Fed. And so when the Fed was looking at the economic data going into the COVID-19 situation, they're like, okay, we don't want the economy to implode, so we're going to induct a massive amount of stimulus. And so the government inducted monetary stimulus and fiscal stimulus at the same time, added up, it's a little over $5 trillion, got dumped into the economy to save us while we were sitting in our houses fearing the virus. And then the second thing the Fed said was, okay, well, the inflation is going to be transitory inflation because, this will resolve itself. We'll come out of our houses and everything will be fine. And they got the data wrong. Because again, they don't really know. They're making a guesstimate, they're making an assumption. And so two things happened to them. I think this is indicative about life. We're going to make predictions here and we don't really know. But the first thing that happened was it took longer to reconnect the supply chain that they thought. And then the second thing that happened, and this is a little bit of the butterfly effect, they underestimated the hospital beds in China. So you say to yourself, okay, well, what does that have to do with the macroeconomic economy? Well, I want you to imagine you're a public health official and you're standing before President Xi, who is, Joe Biden is right, he is a dictator. You're standing in the room with him and you tell him if he opens the economy and he opens the environment to pre-COVID-like levels, the COVID, given the elderly population of the Chinese demography, the COVID is going to push tens of thousands of people into the hospitals in China, and we don't have the hospital bed capacity, a result of which we're going to have tents everywhere, and this is going to be an international nightmare for us and a Western media nightmare for China. And so the president says, okay, we got to stay in lockdown. And so the Fed got it wrong. They didn't understand that they needed more hospital beds in China to handle the illness if they were going to open the economy. They didn't open the economy, and the inflation lasted longer because, let's face it, China is still the Saudi Arabia of manufacturing. They weren't able to get those factories up as quickly as we thought. And so the transitory inflation became more secular, but not permanent inflation, because there's a lot of smart people in this room. You know AI, robotic technology, advancements in immunotherapy, advancements in the transition from chemotherapy to genetically fingerprinted drug solutions for you personally and your family. You know all of that is coming. Okay, so the optimists are always going to do better than the pessimists because the optimists bet the progress in the society. The optimists bet that we're going to figure things out. Now, let me give you two quick stories about this. When I was in school in the mid-'80s, there was an economic professor who said to us in school that there's something called peak oil theory. Anybody old enough in this room to remember what peak oil theory is? Okay, so for the young people, what was peak oil theory? Well, we're going out of oil, running out of oil. There was an economist at Tufts University, 1985, said 25 years from today, in 2010, we're going to be basically out of oil. An oil price at $1985 will be $2,000 plus per barrel. And they got this incredibly wrong because they missized the technological advancements that were going to happen in the society, the more fuel-efficient electric generators, the more fuel-efficient cars, fuel-efficient airplanes. They got wrong the development of the fracking technology, the space exploration and the satellite technology that allowed us to image through the Earth's surface to figure out where the oil was. Turns out we have way more oil than we ever thought. The Marcellus Shale region of the United States, which is the sort of the border between Pennsylvania and New York, northern border of Pennsylvania, southern border of New York, has enough energy in that region to power up the United States for over 300 years. So we got it wrong. I'll take it further back. Some of you are wonky economists. You'll remember Thomas Malthus. Thomas Malthus was a very famous British historian, economic historian. He says, well, we're in a lot of trouble because the population of the world is growing exponentially. We can only grow the food linearly, and we're going to starve. You could Google Tom Malthus, and you can see that the Malthusian proposition is one of starvation. He got irrigation wrong. He got bioengineered food wrong. He got vertical farming wrong. He got the introduction of ultraviolet lights indoors that can grow food. And so he missed all of this great technological innovation. We have more people dying from obesity-related illnesses than we do from starvation. And I want to frame that for you as you're sitting here in your seats right now, whatever you're worried about for the world, whatever you're concerned about that the planet is going to deal with, we're going to innovate, we're going to advance. We just have to not kill each other. We have to find stable political leadership, particularly in the Western democracies like the United States that control the world's largest military. We have to find stable leadership so that we can keep ourselves from killing each other, so that we can continue these economic advancements, we can continue these healthcare advancements, et cetera, and we can meet the needs of the world because the world is actually very abundant. We just have to figure out a way to get the resources out to as many people as possible. I'm not an equal outcomes guy, but I am a believer in a country like the United States, we need to create a platform of equal opportunity. We're a rich enough country where irrespective of where you're born or what family you got born into, we have to figure out a way to get you properly educated and give you a chance at the starting block. I'm all for the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezos of the world, but let's help the kids who have aspirational ambition in the country. And this is a big problem right now for this country, and then I'm going to take questions. The big problem for the country right now is there's a very large group of people in this country that feel left out. You may not feel it in the coast, may not feel it in Miami or in New York, but I can tell you I did, when I worked for Donald Trump, I did 71, I only lasted 11 days in the White House for Donald Trump. Okay, I got fired after 954,000 seconds. If you want me to talk about that, somebody can ask me a question about that. But I was on the campaign with him for 8 months. We did 71 campaign stops together, and we descended into areas of the country that I had not been to before. And when I was in those areas of the country, I got hit in the head with a rock. It was like an epiphany. We were talking to the people that I grew up with. And this is a poor reflection on me because I grew up in a blue-collar family. My dad was a crane operator. Nobody in the family ever went to college. When I got to Harvard Law School, my mother thought it was Hartford Law School. She had no clue. We're going to Connecticut, Anthony? I said, no, Ma, we're going to Boston. Why the hell would they call it Hartford Law School if it's in Boston? What the hell, why would they do it? Ma, okay? And some of you grew up in blue-collar neighborhoods, so you know what I'm talking about, okay? And we went to those areas of the country, and we were visiting the people I grew up with who were in families that were once blue-collar, economically aspirational. And those families are now blue-collar, economically desperational. Those families feel left out. They feel they can't advance. They feel that their kids are going to do worse than they did. My dad didn't think that. He thought his kids were going to do better than he did. There's a good 20% of the country that's upset with the system. They're rejecting the establishment, the political establishment, the medical establishment. They want to take the vaccine, the business establishment, Wall Street, the media. And they're looking for politicians that will express their anger at the establishment. They want wrecking balls. They want an avatar for their anger. Maybe it's expressed in Donald Trump today or Bernie Sanders or AOC, but they want that. And I'm telling you, we have to solve for that in this country. We have to re-knit that social network and bring those people back into the fold. If we don't do that, there's going to be a tremendous amount of political turmoil ahead, and that hurts our ability to advance economically, and that hurts our ability to progress our living standards. One last thing, and then I'm going to take questions. I was told 10 or 15 years ago that we're in a lot of trouble in this country. The healthcare expenses to GDP are at 21% on their way to 30%. It's going to be a nightmare for the country. And we're going to run out of money at the Medicaid level. It's going to be a nightmare for the country. Today, it's at 14%. What happened? More preventative medicine, immunotherapy, what I said, the digital fingerprint of your genome, and then reflecting the drug that is best delivered to you. My mom is 87. She turned 87 last week. She has had leukemia since 2016. But she got the right kind of leukemia, thank God. She has what's known as the Philadelphia gene. There's a drug called Gleevec. It was invented in 2003. If you have this type of leukemia and you have that gene, you can take this drug, and what the drug does is it signals your genes to make the normal red blood cells as opposed to the abnormal malignant red blood cells. And so my mother, for 7 years, is still ruling the roost in the Scaramucci's family, cooking, dispensing guilt, driving everybody in the family crazy, and you know that because some of you have Italian mothers out there, okay, or other mothers that know how to do the same thing, you know. I was at Duke University last night. I said, if any Scaramucci ever gets an honorary degree, it'll be my mom. She'll get a PhD in guilt, in the invention of guilt. But she's 87 and still with us, thank God, because of that drug. Okay, so don't bet against human progress. Don't bet against the optimism that we can have in a society if we can pull things together. Okay, so I'll take any question, anything you guys want to talk about. Yes, sir.
Yeah, first of all, thank God for your mom beating cancer.
Thank you.
Beating cancer for the 5th time, so pray for her.
Thank God, and I will pray for her. God bless you.
My name is Calvin Cooper, and my question is regarding the flyover states. So you said you on the campaign trail visited the flyover states.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from New York, but I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. I've been in capital markets, venture capital particularly. My last board member was Chris Olson. And if you're familiar with Drive Capital, Mark and Chris left
Mm-hmm.
Sequoia Capital, the best venture
I'm
firm
familiar.
in the world,
Yep.
raised billions of dollars investing in the Midwest. So there's a lot of great opportunities. At SkyBridge, have you started to go back into those flyover states, looking at private equity opportunities? What are you seeing? How might we make an impact from the private sector?
So we're SkyBridge has got about $3.5 billion. We've put more of a principal focus for us in the Web3 businesses and cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. We own a very large piece of Solana. We were the first money into the BlackRock Bitcoin Trust which got converted earlier in the month of January this year into the ETFs, and so we were the first money in. So the short answer is no, because we're just too small and we're focused on something else. But I think the broader macroeconomic answer is there tremendous economic opportunity in private equity and public equity, but private equity in the flyover states in places like Columbus, Ohio? The answer is resoundingly yes. My friend Steve Case, some of you may remember him. He was the founder of AOL, the CEO of AOL. He sold it to Time Warner. And he has a great new book out about exactly what you're talking about, which is he is traveling the world. He's traveling the U.S. inside the non-coastal states of the United States, and he's identifying private equity companies. And so if you look up his book, he writes about this. He writes about this economic explosion of opportunity in what we would call the flyover states, so they probably don't like to be called the flyover states, but we can call them that. And so, yes, say it again?
The mighty Midwest.
The moneyed Midwest. The mighty Midwest. Okay, that's pretty good. So the mighty Midwest, I like that. I like the alliteration. And so I like the idea. I just don't have the bandwidth to pursue it. But I'm with you on that. And I used to hang out at a place called Lindy's when I was in Columbus. I covered the state teachers and the Columbus Public Employees Retirement System, my first job at Goldman. There's another question over here. Yes, sir. Or yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Hi, Anthony. Thank you. Catherine Rooney-Vera from StoneX. So the economy is growing remarkably well, which should be good for the incumbent. Yet anyone I talk to, either here in the U.S. or overseas, where a majority of my clients are, think that former President Trump is going to win. It's a done deal.
Yeah.
What do you think of who's going to win, in your opinion?
Right.
No one knows. What's your opinion?
Right.
Who does he pick for his VP? And what happens with Biden and Harris? Do they stick together?
So who does Trump pick for his
Who's
VP?
Trump pick for his VP?
okay.
Who wins, Trump or
All right, so we're going to be
Biden?
like massive speculation. This is where I
Of
piss
course.
off. This is where I piss off 50% of the people in here, which is fine. I enjoy pissing people off, so I appreciate the question. So just a couple of things. Okay, so you are 100% correct. The perception on the economy is quite negative. 43% of the people in the United States, as polled, approve of the Joe Biden economy. Yet, if you look at the economic dashboard of the Joe Biden economy, it's a brilliant economy. Moreover, if Mr. Trump had this type of economy, he'd be on the megahorn bragging about the economy. He said that the economy was going to crash as a result of the Joe Biden presidency. The stock market was going to crash. We're at an all-time high for the stock market. We actually have expanding wages. This is an interesting thing, and Jonathan Hartley's here. You'll have to explain this to me, because we learned if you had wage growth, you have inflation. What's interesting about the data over the last 4 quarters is the wages are going up, but the inflation is coming down. I think that's a result of technology and productivity, but it's a unique thing that's happening. Okay, so the problem is I believe that the spirits in the economy are affected by the image of Joe Biden. Joe Biden looks like he's got one foot on a banana peel and the other foot in a coffin. Okay, I mean, that's what he looks like, okay? And so it's weekend at Joe Biden's, okay? And he's stuttering around, and because we've got social media and all these smartphones, we're watching him, misplace himself as he's getting off of Air Force One. And so that's affecting people's judgment of the economy, okay? And then you have the right-wing media and social media tearing him apart. And so that's affecting people's image of him. He's not representing strength or charisma or the things that Americans want, okay? But then we got the orange bloviator, right? So the orange bloviator is coming in. He's coming in with his lawsuits. He's coming in with his 91 indictments, his 4 criminal indictments, his 91 counts, I should say. He's been convicted as a sexual assaulter. He's going to pay an $83.3 million fine, and there's something going on in the society where there's a Teflon coating around the man, where people are saying, okay, well, that's left-wing Soros-sponsored DAs, and the result of which he stands for capitalism, Joe Biden stands for socialism, and so there's a group of people who are going to vote for Donald Trump. And I get all of that, but you've asked me for a prediction, so I'm going to make a prediction. Economy is going to continue to rise into the election. That's going to be very good for the incumbent. It has always been very good for the incumbent. Moreover, in an election year, if you look at the Stock Trader Almanac, the stock market rises 83% of the time. Okay, so the chances are we're going to have a higher stock market coming into November than we do today. The third thing, which I do think is a real thing, is the demographics of the country have changed dramatically since 2016. You have to look at the data. Okay, this beautiful, colorful mosaic known as the United States, the colors have changed again in the country. It's a very, very, very different country. And you can like what I'm going to say or not like what I'm going to say, but it's a data-dependent, objective thing, okay? President Trump doesn't have the data behind him. You may like him, your friend may like him, the people that are buying catheters and walkers and the commercial interruptions from Fox News, they may like him, okay? But he doesn't have the people. He doesn't have enough people, okay? He lost the popular vote in 2016. He lost the popular vote in 2020. He came close on the Electoral College vote. He had 40,000 votes short of the Electoral College vote. But the demography has changed. Another quick data point. Nikki Haley's voters in the last two primaries, one was a caucus, one was a primary, 43% of Nikki Haley's voters on the exit said, no way, NFW, never, not voting for Donald Trump. Iowa, 71% of those people, no way, never, not voting for Donald Trump in New Hampshire. Now, I've been in presidential politics for 23 years, and I've been on 3 winning campaigns. You have to get the crossover vote from your primary opponents to win the presidential election. Hillary Clinton did not get that crossover vote from Bernie Sanders in 2016. She lost the election. Barack Obama got the crossover vote from Senator Clinton in 2008, won the election. Donald Trump got the crossover vote from Ted Cruz, Kasich, Bush. You pick his opponents. He got the crossover vote and won the election. He doesn't have the crossover vote. He's alienated too many natural allies. Let's go to the independents. The independents are the largest group of people in the United States as registered, 41+%, or registered as independents. The Republicans have the lowest number of registers. They're at 26%. He's got to win the independents to reach the presidency. He doesn't poll well with the independents. Yeah, there are slices of right-leaning polls that say he does, but he really doesn't. Go look at the latest poll from Quinnipiac. Joe Biden, 50. Donald Trump, 44. Interestingly enough, Nikki Haley, which would be a better Republican candidate versus Joe Biden, 47, 42. So Joe Biden's going to win the election. It's going to be weekend at Joe Biden's for the next 4 years. He's going to win the election, okay? And the Republicans in the room are not going to like me for saying that. I'm going to say one last thing about this and take another question. Your families have directly benefited from something known as the Constitution of the United States. And since there's a Latin American flair in this room, and this is a Latin American economic discussion, we know that tyranny and autocracy and dictatorship works for the few. We know that democracy works for the many. We know that democracy sucks as a form of government, though. We do know this. Winston Churchill told us this. He said, democracy is the worst form of government until you consider all the other possibilities of government. And so what do we know about the democracy? We know that our founders, I turned 60 in January. I will tell you, somebody said to me, well, what's your observation of planet Earth at age 60? We suck with power. So everybody got that? You get power, your head goes crazy, your ego goes crazy. Lord Acton was right. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. We suck with power. But the founders, in their great wisdom, about 260 years ago, said, okay, people suck with power. We experience this in Europe. Let's decentralize the power. Let's make the system separate but equal. Separate but equal branches of government, so no one person can get to the power. A result of which, if we flatten the system, we're going to create freedom and economic opportunity. I can't speak for your families, but I can speak for my family. Okay, I come from a family of peasants, and I come from a family of farmers. I know this because I just applied for citizenship in Italy, and they can take you back through the Napoleonic Code of what your grandparents did. Day worker, peasant, farmer. Okay, when you get to 1803, because of the Napoleonic Code, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, feudal farmer. Okay, that's an indentured servant. Does everybody got that? But in the United States, the family could come here and we could have economic freedom, economic expansion, and economic financial independence because of that Constitution. You want to rip up the Constitution? Is that what you guys want? You need more efficiency? If you want to do that, the trains will run on time for about 5 years, and then the system breaks down, and you get an oligarchic, kleptocratic structure in the system. And then your family and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren are going to lose out. It's a sloppy system. It's become tribal. We have to bring it back together. But it's a system that has worked for your family and my family, and you don't want to destroy that system. Mr. Trump has said, and I'm quoting directly from Mr. Trump, that he wants to use the Department of Justice to persecute his political enemies. I don't know, does that sound like Latin America to a few people here? Mr. Trump has said, and I quote, that he wants to be a dictator for a day. He told Sean Hannity that. I got to be a dictator for at least a day. Mr. Trump has said he wants to expand the executive power of the presidency of the United States. Mr. Trump has said that his political adversaries that are speaking negatively about him in media companies, he wants to pull their FCC licenses. He has said that. I'm not making it up. We can go find it. It's not fake news. It's not AI-induced real fakes. He is saying that. Okay, now you can either take him seriously or you can pretend he's not. Mr. Trump has been indicted and people, oh, they're Soros-sponsored DAs. He's got Mark Meadows going after him. Mark Meadows is a white Southerner who ran the Freedom Caucus, the most conservative area of the Congress of the United States. He's his former chief of staff. He's the chief witness for the prosecution in the insurrection case. He told Jack Smith he's got Trump on tape premeditating the insurrection. No problem going after Mike Pence. He better vote the right way for me. Even though I've lost this election, let's go. We got him on tape saying to the Secretary of State of Georgia, you know, I got to get more. How many more? We need 11,247 votes. I just need one more vote than that so I can win. Can you find these votes for me, please? You want that because you're watching Fox News? You want that because you think he's the capitalist and Joe Biden's the socialist? Okay, vote for him. But he's going to lose. And I promise you that I will be out there every day talking to every person that I can come in contact with to explain the gift of this country. You may not like Joe Biden, and he may be weekend at Joe Biden's. But this is a person that is preserving the institutions of this democracy. Some of you came from autocracies, and they suck. So he's going to lose the election. Okay, probably got time for a few
We have time for
questions.
one more,
One more
Anthony.
question.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a student from Miami-Dade College. How appropriate.
Hello. Oh, hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, actually. No,
Great.
I'm not even caffeinated today, and I'm doing great.
Good. So my name is also Anthony McCloof. I go to the Honors College at the Wolfson campus in downtown Miami at Miami-Dade. I'm majoring in economics and I have an interest in venture capital. I kind of wanted to pick your brains on the Middle East a little bit and talking about their strength of their economy. I was originally born in the Middle East. I was born in Beirut and I came here about 7 years ago. So I kind of wanted to pick your brains on to see how the Middle East and their economies could compare to the US. Do you see them growing over time? Do you see the US partnering with them? Do you see them as a threat? Just tell us a little bit your thoughts on that.
Well, I'll be broad and I'll be brief. I travel to the Middle East regularly. I have friendships and relationships with MBS, MBZ, the president of the UAE. I'm also a very strong supporter of Israel. I spent a lot of time in Israel. And I want there to be peace. I obviously want there to be peace. I think it goes without saying that peace was getting closer, meaning a normalization between Saudi and Israel when the October 7th massacre started, and that was inducted by the Iranians through Hamas. They don't want that type of stability in the region or that type of economic prosperity. And so I'm hoping that cooler heads will prevail and we'll get to an eventual ceasefire and we'll get Israel in a position, from a border position, where they feel safe. And I'm hoping that the Abraham Accords will continue with the extension of the Abraham Accords to Saudi Arabia. The United States, I just got done with my sermon on the institution of the United States. The other countries are different. So I'm not here to opine on the strengths and weaknesses. I'm here to protect our country. Those countries are mostly in monarchies. Those countries are mostly in fairly strong one-party governments. And I want the United States to be friends with those countries, and I want there to be peace and prosperity. And we can get there, but there's radicalism in that area of the world that if we don't figure out a way to reduce that radicalism, we're not going to get there. And so you're asking me the question. Those countries are growing. They're great countries. If you ask them honestly, they need the footprint of the U.S. military to protect them, particularly from the Iranians. And we need to be there. Whether we like it or not, if you want peace and prosperity here, we need to be there. And so I'm hoping that over the next 5 or 6 years, we'll continue that economic expansion. I just want to end this on one thing, okay? Whatever you're worried about, because we all have our worries every day, stop worrying about it. Focus your mind into the present. Don't regret the past, because that'll make you depressed. Don't overthink the future, because that will make you anxious. Focus on what you're doing today and let it go. Don't worry about it. Don't let the media trigger you. Don't let TikTok trigger you. Social media trigger you. Focus your mind on what you're doing today for your business, your family, and your friends. If you do that, you're going to be a way, way happier person. And in the immortal words of Mel Brooks, the 96-year-old American comedian, relax. None of us are getting out of here alive. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Enjoyed it. Thank you.